Welcome back to the County News Podcast. I'm Nicole Weissman.
And I'm Charlie Ban.
And this month, September 2024, is National Preparedness Month. So, Charlie, tell us who you decided to speak to.
I talked to Barry Anderson. He's a supervisor in Clay County, Iowa. I've known him for the last few years. He was the ISAC president this past year. But he had to leave our NACo annual conference midway through because Clay County had suffered a tremendous flood, the likes of which he hadn't seen since he was a kid. And that really speaks to the magnitude of what he was dealing with in Clay County.
And it's a fantastic discussion. He's going to talk about the impact on his community, the mental health impact, but also the trickling effects of a flood event and the different things that happen because of it. And also all of the organizations and community members that show up to support and how best to coordinate them. So it's a really fantastic conversation. And after that, we'll also have a conversation here in our NACo studio with one of our own experts from NACo, providing some perspective on emergency preparedness as well. Let's go to that interview with Supervisor Anderson.
Supervisor Anderson, as I understand it, every spring, the Little Sioux River floods a little bit just from snowmelt as the winter ends. But June's flooding was dramatically different. Tell me about it.
Yeah, Charlie, we went from 4 years of drought to all of a sudden this spring we started to fill up our creeks and our waterways, and just seemed like we were getting all the right rains at all the right time, and it in fact slowed our planting progress down. We haven't had that for years. And then we got, I want to say the week of June 15th, we got a 3-inch rain, which took us up to light flooding. And we were handling that. Our flood stage is about 10 foot. The 3-inch rain that we got took us up to about a 17-foot flood stage. But the berm that we have in Spencer, our main hub of our county, will handle a 17-foot flood stage. And then June 22nd, the lakes area north of us and northwest of us got a 7-inch rain, and it took us from 17 to a 22-foot flood stage. And went over any berm we had. There was nothing that we could do to withstand that. It was just Mother Nature at her finest.
Had you seen any flooding like this in the recent past?
No, we haven't seen a flood like this in Spencer and Clay County since I want to say the year was 1953. So yes, this is the largest flood that we have had. I asked my dad's 95. I said, do you remember that flood? He says, oh yeah, I remember that flood. He says, was not a good time in anybody's lives.
What was the extent of the damage in Spencer and other parts of Clay County?
We had some damage in the rural outlying areas, but most of the flooding was in Spencer. So let me give you a little information on Spencer. Clay County is a 16,000 population county. 12,000 of that is in Spencer, Iowa. So most of it is in Spencer. So there's 5,000 dwellings. 2,100 of those dwellings were affected by the flood in some manner. 75% of that was either affected by water of either top water or sewer water backup, because when that flood hit, it also shut down our sewer plant. And so we had a little bit of both. Mother Nature sending top water to us, as well as then we had sewer water backup and damage happening. One good part is that the people of Spencer, people of Clay County, surrounding areas came. The river split us. It split Spencer right in middle. And so we had people on the north side of Spencer. We had people on the south side of Spencer. We had to set up places where those people could go. So we set up shelters down at the church on the south end of town. We set up a shelter at a church on the north side of town. And so for several days, we were two towns separated by the river. And so, yes, it's something, Charlie, that I've never seen before. We had over 100 foundations in Spencer collapsed on the houses. So like like my mom and dad's house on the southwest side of Spencer, they lost 3 of their 4 basement walls. So, yeah, a lot of damage. We're an elderly community. And so for us to have people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s hanging on to refrigerators in waist to chest high water was just incredible that we did not lose anybody.
Considering the extent of the damage in Spencer, how many homes were declared a total loss?
And we still don't know at this point. We've had people apply for demolition permits, but they don't have a total number on that yet. So at this point, I know there's been 80 foundations that had collapsed that were being worked on. I believe there were 10 that they were looking at being a total just demolition. So the other 10 that I know of don't really know yet if they're going to rebuild. So, and then brings up the question, do you rebuild? How many are going to go through what they call flood flight? They take the FEMA money and they just take off. That we won't know for a little while. It's coming into property tax time. This is going to be a tough one to swallow. How do you pay your property taxes when your home has been destroyed or heavy damage and you're having to sink your nest egg back into your house, your property, and then you're still going to be asked to pay your taxes? Well, our taxes are 18 months in arrears. And so that's an education that we're going to have to work with people. We're going to have to talk that through. Possibly in the future, we might be able to do some abatement. So right now, we're just trying to point those people in the areas of foundation so that they can get help as far as rebuilding, getting their feet back underneath them.
What emergency services was the county able to put in place during the flooding and afterwards?
Yeah, great question. Our EMA coordinator, we are a committee of one in Clay County with our EMA coordinator. He jumped into action. He started working with the city of Spencer and their leadership. We diverted more resources his way. We put people underneath him so that he could start getting people to the table that needed to happen. We started meeting with the fire chief, the city mayor, the hospital. Mental health. Mental health is huge in this time because people just don't have any idea what they're going to do. And so we got mobile crisis online and got them boots on the ground right away. And then luckily, we had people in the community as far as, you start to think, what would happen if you just had no place to go? Number one, you have to have shelter. Number two, you have to have food. And so we started setting up volunteer places where we could grill, whether that be the pork producers, the cattlemen, you name it. Whoever wanted to come out and grill, we started setting up on those peripheries to start to get people food. Then we set up a distribution center. People started donating clothes, all kinds of hygiene products, you name it. It got to the point, Charlie, that we were overwhelmed. People were giving so much that we just couldn't handle it. And it is a good problem to have. It's just at some point we had to kind of curtail what they were bringing, so we shut off clothes because it was almost too much. Then we started going around house to house, knocking on doors, finding out, okay, are you able to get out of your house? Or, a lot of people were taken out of the houses by boats. And so just a lot of immediate needs. And things changed so quickly. We went from immediate needs to all of a sudden the flood came up fast in one day and it went back down fast. And so people were wanting to get back in their houses, starting to take debris out of their houses. So saw a lot of swings, a lot of waves in this. And so a lot of people started working on houses, which then they needed help. So we set up people to come in and cook food during the day at Hy-Vee, different places, and all of those meals were free. Then we had volunteer groups. We had Samaritan's Purse. We had 8 Days of Hope came in. The Baptist group came in. We had all kinds of groups coming in and volunteering. They had over 1,000 work orders. Now, some of those would have been duplicated. So they tried to call different places and they got set up on many lists. But as of Sunday, yesterday, Samaritan's Purse said that they were down to 72 to 74 work orders that were still online to be worked through. They were hoping to have those worked through in a couple weeks. So things have really changed. But, you know, Charlie, I think one of the biggest things that I have seen with this is you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I've gone to the NACo RAC symposium down in West Virginia. Tammy Tincher invited us down to that. She talked to us about the flood that they went through. All of a sudden, a light went off in my mind that I don't need to go through this by myself. She's gone through this. She's got people that have gone through this. And so I called Tammy and boom, all of a sudden she had a Zoom meeting set up with her EMA coordinator and people that worked through her community, and it was just incredible. So I got leaders on our end in touch with leaders on her end, and they gave us a lot of good information. Another one we reached out to was Linda Langston, past NACo president. She went through the floods in Cedar Rapids. She talked about resources and FEMA and people that you had to get in contact with. So that cut out a lot of the learning that we had to do. And it was just, it was nice because all of a sudden we could just hit the ground running. And we had already hit the ground running, but it told us things that we needed to focus on and things that we could kind of bypass and look in other areas.
I saw that FEMA set up shop at your fairground right around where all the debris was taken from the damaged homes. I can only imagine the contrast between these symbols of the devastation in town and the celebratory atmosphere you're used to at the fairgrounds.
Our county fair is the largest county fair in the U.S. And so, yeah, this is going to be a huge year for us because we just talked about it yesterday. People love the Clay County Fair. Brings in over 300,000 people a year. And people in Clay County are going to need some form of normalcy. I don't care if it's a fried whatever, or just getting out and talking with neighbors, talking about what they've gone through. This is going to be a huge venting session at our Clay County Fair, but it is going to be so welcomed because people are going to have to go through that. They have to have people to talk to, and everybody let everybody know that it's going to be okay. We're going to get there.
What experiences from this flood can Clay County take away to inform future mitigation efforts?
We are sitting through meetings right now with the Water Management Authority that goes up to the Iowa Great Lakes up in Dickinson County, all the way down to Sioux City. And we're talking about, okay, what could we do mitigation-wise? Could we build a berm? We could, but we have with those two rivers that come together right at the point of Spencer, it would have to be such a huge berm that that's really not feasible. So then we talk about, do we try to do mitigation as far as buying ground and making it more into a lake overflow? We've had an engineer crunch some numbers on that, and that would take an enormous amount of ground. So the funds, number one, aren't there. So then we start talking, okay, in town, what could we do? Could we move people to maybe better, higher ground where if we do get a flood, they're farther south out of town where it did not get hit, or north out of town, So I'm sure some of that is going to happen, but construction hasn't been real big in Clay County either, or Spencer. We kind of do it as we need it, and there are little projects here or there. So a lot of beginning conversation with contractors and with builders and just leadership to try and see where we might be able to kind of, I guess, change how we think about things, because we haven't had a flood like this. None of us, like you said at the start, none of us have gone through this. So this is horrible, but for us to also not have those conversations of how do we mitigate this, we would not be doing our due diligence. So it's going to be some tough questions. We're going to have to try to decide, and it's probably going to be a little bit of everything. Some people are going to move. We're going to move some businesses. We're going to move some housing. If we do a buyout in Spencer, then it has to go to green space. So how do you buy single houses here but not there? So a lot of hard conversations are going to have to happen, but it's not a one decision that kind of solves all.
That was Charlie's conversation with Clay County, Iowa Supervisor Barry Anderson. And now we're here in the NACo studio with Brett Mattson. Brett is Legislative Director for Justice and Public Safety and Liaison to NACo's Gulf States, Counties, and Parishes Caucus. Hi, Brett.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we're hearing so many interesting aspects of Supervisor Anderson's experience. And one that he talks about is the flood hits, and then it also shuts down the sewer plant. And now you've got sewer water back up. And I'm sure this exact thing doesn't happen everywhere. But is this something you see a lot in counties that have experiences with disasters, where something happens and it sets off sort of a domino effect with other things going on?
Regardless of county size, everyone after a disaster usually is focused on the immediate response. However, those trickle-down effects that usually come to light after a disaster usually can actually be the most burdensome. The best opportunity to kind of recognize and figure out what the path forward is for those is taking advantage of tabletop exercises, staying in constant communication with your division heads during a disaster, and especially if you have a disaster forthcoming, really reaching out to those respective agency heads and saying, what could this possibly be? What's our contingency plan if we don't have power for 3 days or a week?
Sure, you can't think of everything, but you can at least plan for how you'll approach the things you can't plan for.
In addition to the physical consequences of disasters that Supervisor Anderson mentioned, he also pointed out that there was a bit of a mental health crisis following a disaster in which people are losing their homes, people are perhaps moving out of their communities. What resources are available for counties to help people who are suffering from that second-order disaster?
This is a constant problem that we hear about before, during, and after a disaster, not just from our residents who are certainly most important and usually most impacted after a disaster, but also from county staff who are recovering or trying to assist the community in recovering after a disaster. Many of these jurisdictions are going through disaster after disaster after disaster. So you might be responding to a wildfire. Next thing you know, COVID comes along. So, those kind of compounding disasters also really wear down the mental health of staff, but obviously also our residents. One program that I would point out to folks that we've worked on here at NACo is FEMA's Crisis Counseling Assistance and Training Program. So that program provides resources to impacted jurisdictions of any level of disaster. Previously, it was only if you received a major disaster declaration, but now those resources are available to any and all types of disaster declarations. And so folks can leverage those resources to provide mental health services, trainings, things like that for residents, but also county staff.
And Brett, you've been working on these issues here at NACo for several years now. So can you take a moment to just take a step back and tell us a little bit about the landscape around your federal advocacy efforts around disaster preparedness?
A couple of things in the immediate term that we're working on. So FEMA's biggest funding stream is known as the Disaster Relief Fund. And that resource right now is actually running dry. So they have switched the DRF into what is known as immediate needs funding. So after a disaster, a community would only be able to receive assistance if it is for quote unquote life-saving measures. So any long-term recovery efforts, whether that's infrastructure, repairing roads and bridges, all of that has been shifted to the back burner until the DRF gets replenished. So one of the things that we are hyper-focused on is passing a supplemental funding package for the DRF as Congress mulls over a continuing resolution. I would point to two other pieces that we're really working on. One is for our residents. So after a disaster, there are three kind of big main federal agencies that come to the table: FEMA, HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, and then SBA, or the Small Business Administration. And so residents and individuals can apply for funding across those three different agencies, but the applications are quite duplicative, lengthy, and you have to input a lot of the same information because those three agencies do not talk to each other as it relates to individual assistance. So there's a piece of legislation that we're working on that would create a universal disaster application that would basically create one application for those three respective agencies and really cut down the amount of time and effort that our residents would need to take in applying for assistance in what we know to be some of the most tumultuous times of their lives. So that's another one. The other big one that we've been working on for quite some time is reauthorizing and reforming the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's the big federal insurance program that assists individuals and communities with providing insurance against flooding. So we know a lot of our folks have or are members of the NFIP, and the program has not been reauthorized since 2012. And what that has essentially done is create a number of gaps and problems with the program. Most notably, the FEMA just released what is known as Risk Rating 2.0, which kind of changed their risk calculation for what insurance premiums are going to be. And what we've seen as a result of that is a lot of homeowners' insurance premiums skyrocketing, whether it's 100, 200, 300% increases in some jurisdictions. And so we are actively working to reauthorize and reform NFIP. Risk Rating 2.0 is certainly just one piece of a much larger puzzle as it relates to NFIP. But that's the other kind of big fish out there that we're really working on to help our communities.
Thank you for joining us, Brett.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Supervisor Anderson, and thank you, Brett, for joining us on the County News Podcast. We'll see you next time.